Unity Engine. The story of Unity is the story of how game development stopped being an elite club and became something anyone could join. When Unity 1.0 launched in 2005, it wasn't trying to rival the giants. It was Mac only, aimed at indie creators who couldn't dream of affording licenses to Unreal or CryEngine. The tools were simple, the output was modest, but the philosophy was groundbreaking. Build once, deploy anywhere. Suddenly, a small team, or even a single person, could make a real game and get it running. The real explosion came with Unity 3.x around 2010. This was right when smartphones and app stores were turning into gold mines. Unity leaned hard into mobile and cross-platform publishing, and developers jumped in. Angry Birds-style clones, endless runners, puzzle hits. Half the early App Store boom ran on Unity. The same engine that made quirky Mac experiments was now powering games downloaded by hundreds of millions of people. By 2015, Unity 5 pushed into serious territory with physically based rendering, cinematic lighting, and audio upgrades. Indie games like Cuphead, Hollow Knight, and Ori and the Blind Forest showed that Unity wasn't just for mobile anymore. It could deliver art styles that rivaled the big leagues. It became the go-to choice for anyone with a creative vision but without a AAA Studios budget. Then Unity shifted into a rolling release model. Unity 2017 through 2020, introducing new rendering pipelines, VR and AR support, and machine learning tools. Studios used Unity for everything from Pokemon Go to entire architectural visualizations. It wasn't just for games anymore. It became a universal tool for interactive media. And now, with Unity 6 in 2024, the engine has stepped into next-gen territory. Ray tracing, massive world streaming, AI-assisted development tools, all aimed at keeping Unity relevant in a space dominated by Unreal. Developers are using it not just for traditional games, but for VR classrooms, car simulators, even digital twins of entire cities. What makes Unity legendary isn't raw horsepower. It's accessibility. It lowered the gate, handed the keys to millions of creators, and proved that you don't need a giant studio to leave a giant mark on the gaming world. Rage Engine. Rockstar's Rage Engine, short for Rockstar Advanced Game Engine, is the invisible glue behind some of the biggest open worlds in gaming history. It first appeared in 2006 with Rockstar Games Presents Table Tennis, a strange, almost comical debut for an engine that would later power Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, and more. But that table tennis game was a tech showcase. Fluid character animations, real-time cloth physics, and buttery smooth responsiveness. From there, RAGE grew into a monster. Grand Theft Auto 4, 2008, was its first major test. Liberty City suddenly had weight, cars felt heavier, pedestrians stumbled realistically, and the city pulsed with detail. Rockstar paired Rage with Natural Motion's Euphoria physics, giving NPCs unpredictable, lifelike reactions. Shoot a thug in the leg, and he'd limp away in panic. Crash into a car, and pedestrians tumbled across the hood in ways that felt unscripted. By the time Red Dead Redemption launched in 2010, Rage had evolved into something bigger. It wasn't just about physics, it was about immersion. Horses had muscle simulations, deserts stretched endlessly without loading screens, and the lighting system painted the frontier with painterly sunsets. Suddenly, an engine that started with table tennis was making players feel the loneliness of the American West. The real turning point, though, was Grand Theft Auto 5 in 2013. Rage delivered a sprawling Los Santos, full of systems talking to each other, dynamic traffic, police AI, planes, submarines, wildlife, and 3 protagonists whose lives you could switch between seamlessly. Even a decade later, GTA V feels modern because of how solid the engine's backbone is. And then came Red Dead Redemption 2, 2018, a showcase of Rage at full throttle. Every detail, from mud caking on Arthur's boots to snow melting under his body, was calculated in real time. NPCs remembered your interactions, wildlife ecosystems ran on background simulations, and the world felt alive in a way few games had ever matched. It wasn't just an engine powering graphics, it was powering a philosophy of immersion. Rage's legend lies in how it scaled with ambition. It went from a small sports demo to the foundation of worlds that feel boundless. Where other engines push polygons, Rage pushes behavior, systems, and life itself, making Rockstar's games less like virtual maps and more like parallel realities. Creation Engine. Bethesda's Creation Engine is one of the most recognizable and infamous game engines in history. It's the DNA of Skyrim and Fallout 4, the invisible skeleton holding up worlds that millions of players have spent thousands of hours wandering. But here's the twist. It's not really new. Creation Engine is a heavily modified descendant of Bethesda's older Gamebryo tech, which powered Morrowind back in 2002. When The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim launched in 2011, Creation Engine made its big public debut. The world wasn't just bigger, it was richer. Mountains you could actually climb, rivers with flowing water, dragons swooping down dynamically. The weather system shifted seamlessly from bright sunshine to snowstorms, and the sky had a new trick. The auroras that danced over Skyrim's nights were all procedural, never quite the same twice. Then came Fallout 4 in 2015, which showed how much Bethesda had tweaked Creation. Lighting was overhauled with physically based rendering, character faces had more detail, and perhaps most importantly, it introduced the settlement system. For the first time, players weren't just exploring, they were building towns, wiring up turrets, running power grids. This wasn't just a new feature, it was Bethesda bending the engine to simulate player-driven creativity. But with all its ambition came baggage. Players know the phrase Bethesda bugs for a reason. Characters clipping through walls, dragons flying backwards, NPCs floating off into the void. Creation Engine has been as much a source of memes as of immersion. Yet, in a strange way, those glitches became part of its legacy, a reminder of just how complex these simulated worlds really are. Its biggest evolution is happening now with Starfield 2023 and the upcoming Elder Scrolls 6. Bethesda calls it Creation Engine 2, a rebuilt version designed to handle planets, cities, and next-gen fidelity. Instead of just one handcrafted map, it can now support entire star systems, with tools that let the studio build more content than ever before. The legend of Creation Engine isn't about being perfect, it's about being boundlessly moddable. Skyrim is still alive today, not because of Bethesda's patches, but because the engine let players reshape it endlessly with mods. From Thomas the Tank Engine Dragons to Ultra HD realism, Creation became more of a sandbox for creativity than a fixed piece of software. Godot Engine. This one didn't come from a billion-dollar company. It started as an open-source project, small and scrappy, and grew into a global movement. Godot 1.0 dropped in 2014, and at first it felt like a niche tool. It wasn't flashy, and most developers stuck with Unity or Unreal. But Godot had something different. Freedom. No licensing fees, no royalties, no restrictions. You could download it, crack it open, and even change the engine itself if you wanted to. For hobbyists and indie coders, that was a dream. 2 years later, Godot 2.0 brought stability and features that made it more than just an experiment. Small teams started shipping games, and a quiet community formed around the idea that development should be open and accessible. Unlike engines with corporate roadmaps, Godot was shaped by the people who used it. Then came Godot 3.0 in 2018, and everything changed. It introduced a new renderer, 3D support, and tools that made it competitive. Suddenly, developers who couldn't or wouldn't touch Unity because of licensing issues had a real alternative. Indie games built in Godot began showing up on Steam, proving that it wasn't just for prototypes anymore. Godot 4.0, released in 2023, pushed the engine into its breakthrough moment. A completely rewritten renderer, Vulkan support, better performance, and tools that rivaled big-name engines. Developers around the world began adopting it, not just for ideological reasons, but because it was genuinely powerful. With Unity's controversial pricing changes in 2023, even more studios jumped ship to Godot, accelerating its rise. What makes Godot legendary isn't that it toppled Unreal or Unity, it's that it represents a new way forward, an engine built not by corporations, but by a community. It's become a symbol of independence, a tool that gives developers control over their creations, and proof that sometimes the underdog doesn't just survive, it reshapes the landscape. Done watching? If you like this video, hit subscribe for more cool stuff.